not something we can take for granted. We all have got to come together to ensure that we're doing everything we can so that the college is on the path for future success and that it gets the resources that it needs to continue to be the pillar of our community for decades to come. Now, this may be a little, yes, we need you. It's why the upcoming vote on the millage is so important. Today isn't about politics, but I do want to emphasize this to everybody, and we need to be talking to our neighbors about this. I will vote for the millage for Henry Ford College, and I'm encouraging everybody to do the same. You got to do it. This isn't a tax increase. It isn't. Education is a public good. Every child in this country deserves a right to have equal opportunity, and you do that by getting a good education. It means we got to come together to support it. If we want to set ourselves up for success for the future, we've got to make sure we're putting our money where our mouth is. The ballot proposal, and you need to tell this to people so they've got the facts. It's simply an extension of an existing property tax millage which expires, and it's got to be renewed by the voters. Nobody's asking for anything new, but rather a continuation of funding that's already in place. The $1 mil reauthorization represents a $4.2 million a year in revenue for the college. That matters. It's about our kids, or 5% of the overall operating budget. There's a lot going on, but don't forget what matters right here at home in the community we live in. So, in closing, congratulations. We're excited that you're here. We can't wait to see all that you're going to do, and everybody in this room is here to support you. Congratulations.
Our next speaker is United States Magistrate Judge Philip Green. Judge Green's been specifically asked to speak by Russ, and in talking to Russ about the program and the speakers, he indicated that Judge Green has not only been a friend for many, many years, but he's been a mentor. So if you've been a mentor to this fine gentleman, you did a good job as well. As I mentioned, he has served as United States Magistrate Judge for the Western District of Michigan for the past 4 years. Before that, he was a trial attorney, Assistant United States Attorney in Grand Rapids. He has served in various leadership roles in the United States Attorney's Office, including Senior Litigation Counsel, Deputy Criminal Chief, First Assistant United States Attorney, Interim United States Attorney. He's been an adjunct professor at Western Michigan University, Cooley Law School, at Ferris State University. He has served in the U.S. Navy and is in the U.S. Army Reserves. Both of those, wow. But anyway, thank you for your service as well. You did a good job as mentor. If you can tell us some really good secrets about Russ Kavalhuna, we'd appreciate it. I go to the negotiating table in 2 years, so we can talk later privately. Judge.
Good evening. President Kavalhuna, and most importantly, Courtney. I am going to be talking about Russ as an advocate. I think his single most greatest accomplishment as an advocate is convincing Courtney to marry him. Those of us who have been on the losing end of an argument with Russ, and we are many, salute him. I am honored to be here for the investiture of Russ as the 6th president of Henry Ford College. I'm even more honored to be asked to speak this evening. There's always a risk in asking a judge to speak. You know, there's something about wearing a black robe that brings out opinions in people. Opinions about everything, whether the opinions are asked for or not. So, of course, I can't resist the temptation to offer some opinions here, even though no one has asked me. As it happens, I have an opinion about whether Russ Kavalhuna should be the president of Henry Ford College. Now, I understand the decision's already been made, and that this is neither the time nor the place to revisit that decision. But I am wearing a black robe. I can't help myself. Are you nervous yet? It seems to me there's two questions to answer. The first is Henry Ford College right for Russ? And the second, is Russ right for Henry Ford College? Now, for the past several months, Russ has been bragging about how great Dearborn is and how great Henry Ford College is. Now, I'm a hick from Berry County over on the west side of the state, so I decided to do a little research. Here's some of the things that I've learned about Dearborn. It has a very rich history, going back to its founding in 1786. It's the 8th largest city in Michigan, the 2nd largest city in Wayne County. Makes me wonder what the largest city is, but I don't think that's important. It has a very diverse population. I think that gives the city a great deal of strength. The fabric of the city is all the more beautiful because of the variety of the threads with which it's been woven. It's a regional center for manufacturing. It offers many high-tech jobs and, I guess, more to come. Superior health care services are offered here in Dearborn. Excellent higher education. More on that later. Outstanding cultural environment, many great visitor attractions. I think Dearborn residents have many good reasons to be very proud of their home here. And so I can certainly understand why Russ wants to live in Dearborn. Now, what about Henry Ford College? It's an integral part of Dearborn and has been for 80 years. It boasts a proud tradition of academic excellence, a rich heritage of arts and culture, and a strong ethic of service. The college offers degrees and certificate programs in the liberal arts, the sciences, the fine arts, the culinary arts, and health sciences. And the college has managed to keep tuition low without sacrificing academic standards. I know this sounds like a commercial, but I'm just repeating what Russ has been telling me. And I know Russ tells the truth. Seriously, I think Henry Ford College has a very bright future. I think this college would be perfect for a leader who has vision. Now, the trustees prepared the presidential search process, and I know they put out an announcement, and they're a lot smarter than I am, so I know they did a great job. But in my mind, I think that announcement could have been as simple as this ad. Help wanted, a leader. How do you recognize a true leader? What are the characteristics of a leader? I'll focus on 5. Integrity, vision, courage, perseverance, and generosity. A leader has integrity. And integrity is not simply the absence of deceit. Rather, it's a positive virtue that orients one towards ethical conduct, rectitude, and fairness. No one wants to follow someone they don't trust, not only to treat them honestly, but to treat them fairly. A leader has vision. We need to know that the person leading us has a clear understanding of where she or he is taking us. And that vision needs to challenge us to be better than we think we can be. A leader has courage. Courage includes the ability to go beyond the boundaries of fear. Nelson Mandela once said, "I learned courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." Courage includes perseverance in the face of adversity. The writer Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "A hero is no braver than an ordinary man. He's just braver 5 minutes longer." Courage allows someone to expand their horizon and to let go of the familiar. Lord Chesterfield said it well. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. A leader is generous. He has a keen sense of service, empathy for others, which means an ability to understand and to share the feelings of others. A leader is more interested in the team's success than in his or her own. Some have suggested that Russ Kavalhuna is an unconventional candidate to become president of a college. I suppose that's true, but I've never cared much for convention. It isn't always the best course. I, for one, was not a bit surprised in Russ Kavalhuna's interest in being president of this college, nor was I surprised by his selection. It seems to me that Russ has been preparing for this role for quite some time. The leadership characteristics that I've described to you define Russ Kavalhuna. No one I know embodies those characteristics better than he. I met Russ about 10 years ago when he came to the U.S. Attorney's Office. He was appointed under the Attorney General's Honors Program, which is quite prestigious. He was a brand new assistant U.S. attorney. I was asked to mentor and train him. As I began the training process, I found that Russ is full of questions. Questions, questions, questions. I thought this guy was going to be trouble. He was going to be a pain in the neck. But I also realized right away that he was someone to be reckoned with, because all of his questions were very insightful. When I was training new assistant U.S. attorneys, what I would generally do is go to them as I had a trial coming, and I'd say, "You're going to try this case with me. You can do as much or as little as you want. Just tell me what parts you want to do. I'll do the rest." Most people find trying a case in federal court to be somewhat of a daunting task. And so when they're new, they generally will pick a couple of things. They'll take one or two witnesses. Maybe they'll do the opening. Not too much that first time out. Not Russ. He wanted to do it all. The entire trial, opening through the rebuttal argument. He had been in the office, I think, about 3 weeks at that point. My bosses thought I was crazy, but I let him do it. There was something about Russ that gave me confidence to let him try. I was by his side throughout the process and in the trial, but I gave him that opportunity. Now, the judge who presided over that trial certainly tested Russ's mettle. Now, the defense attorney in that case was the most beloved attorney of all. One of my favorites, too. Didn't hurt that he was very handsome. Juries loved him. And he was very highly respected by all the judges, including the judge who presided over this trial. There was no defense objection that was left unsustained, and no government objection not overruled. The judge gave Russ a bit of a hard time. He was wary of this new young pup. But Russ knew where he was going. He never lost sight of what he was there in that courtroom to do. And he demonstrated courage and resilience in dealing with a somewhat hostile judge. And in the end, he not only obtained a conviction, but he earned that judge's respect. Another opportunity I got to see Russ prove his leadership ability was in the prosecution of two individuals for the kidnapping and murder of a man who lived near Saranac, Michigan. In September 2007, Donald Dietz disappeared without a trace. Never been a body found, no crime scene, no murder weapon, no DNA, no witnesses. Other than that, it was a pretty good case. I'm serious. Purely circumstantial case. And the defendants went for separate trials. Each were about 4 to 6 weeks long. Because this was a purely circumstantial case, it depended very largely on technical evidence that had been obtained concerning telephone use and computer evidence. This was complex stuff, difficult to explain, much less for us to understand. The U.S. Attorney and I, Don Davis is here this evening, were preparing to try that case. Both of us knew we didn't have the technical expertise or proficiency to handle that job. Excuse me. We needed somebody to step in to handle the scientific evidence. So we turned to Russ, even though he was still relatively new. By the way, I learned early on how to exploit Russ's talents. As we prepared for trial, it became the perfect storm. Everything that could go wrong did. On top of all that, Russ and I each faced very painful situations in our families. It is said if you want to take the measure of a man, sit in a foxhole with him. I'm not suggesting that what we went through was anything like combat, believe me. But we had plenty of stress. Russ again rose to the occasion. Not only that, he continued to put his colleagues' interests ahead of his own. He again showed courage and resilience. And he showed me a great deal of empathy, for which I will be eternally grateful. I would follow Russ anywhere. By the way, at the trial, Russ handled the scientific evidence brilliantly, despite two adversaries, the defense counsel and the judge. He overcame those obstacles. We couldn't have earned the convictions without his help, but once again, Russ earned the respect not only of the defense counsel, but of the judge. Bear with me while I tell you just one more war story. In 2011, ATF and Holland Police Department came to me. They had a very serious problem in Holland. A very violent gang called the Latin Kings was terrorizing that community. They came to me for help. They wanted to know if I would consider bringing a RICO case, a racketeering case against this gang. I opened the grand jury investigation with the intent, or at least the hope, of bringing a RICO prosecution, which would be the first in the Western District of Michigan. Let me tell you, RICO cases are extremely complex and difficult, and they require the approval of the Department of Justice. This was going to be a 2-year grand jury investigation. I thought to myself, how am I going to get this done? Aha. Exploit Russ Kavalhuna. Russ joined the team. Everyone quickly recognized Russ's leadership skills as well as his keen intellect. The agents naturally looked to him for direction, and so did I. Russ eventually assumed responsibility as lead counsel of that case. He drafted the indictment that was some 76 pages long, charging 31 defendants and 22 counts. He also dealt with the bureaucrats at the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney's Office, which alone would be enough to send any sane person screaming into the night. Russ was our leader. The mentee became the mentor. And how I enjoyed the ride. Thanks, Russ. I am so proud of my friend Russ, and I am very pleased to be here celebrating his assumption of the mantle of leadership for Henry Ford College. Yes, Russ is my dear friend. But I'm not saying these things because Russ is my dear friend. Rather, he is my dear friend because all the things I've said is true. Now, I warn you, Russ is no wallflower. Be prepared for questions, and more questions, and more questions. But be assured, his interest is genuine, and his intentions are pure. So in conclusion, I will issue the following rulings. Is Henry Ford College the right place for Russ Kavalhuna? Unquestionably, yes. Is Russ the right choice to lead Henry Ford College? Absolutely. Miles and I have always thought alike. In my view, the selection of Russ Kavalhuna to be president of Henry Ford College is a perfect fit, a win-win. This college does have a very bright future, and I congratulate the trustees who had the vision to select the right leader for the right time. Russ may have been an unconventional candidate, but the trustees could not have made a better choice. And so I congratulate my friend Russ. I also congratulate Henry Ford College.
Every union president in the crowd is getting a little nervous when we have Russ Kavalhuna and Miles Kavalhuna to contend with all at the same time. Lastly, I would like to introduce the chair of our Board of Trustees. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when you serve on our board, you are serving on and overseeing two organizations, probably each of which having a budget in excess well north of $80,000 each. It's two large businesses that are being 80 million, I'm sorry. What's a few million among friends? See how much the budget has increased since we hired this man? At any rate, two very large responsibilities, and the chair rotates through, the chairship rotates through our board, and it is an additional responsibility on top of what other trustees have to undertake. And our current chair is Dr. Michael Mead. Michael actually has a higher education background. He is the first in my long memory of board members who come with such a knowledge and such expertise in higher education. He has spent more than 50 years in serving in higher education in a variety of capacities. He began his career at Montgomery College in Maryland, and left that position in 1982 to return to Michigan and Henry Ford and service at Henry Ford Community College. He served as Vice President of Student Services for a number of years under Presidents Bundy and Mazzara. And he actually served as the acting president for a year, not an interim position, but a time when we had a vacancy, and he served in that role as well. After his retirement, he was so dedicated, and his wife is so dedicated to bettering the lives of students. He continued to work here as an adjunct, as a counselor, as his wife has done as well. And following his retirement, he ran for and was elected by a very large margin to our Board of Trustees. His service and knowledge of higher ed is an attribute that he brings to the board. And I've known Dr. Mead for many years. He's a fine gentleman and a fine representative of what this community has to offer. Michael.
Thank you, John. You know, I'm just bowled over by all the people that are here tonight. I think it just shows that there's a new chapter in the history of Henry Ford College that's unfolding. And I just felt the spirit right from the beginning that people are here to show Mr. Kavalhuna their support. This is a time when we are enjoying his leadership, as the judge has indicated. I asked a lot of people how they felt about President Kavalhuna, and they just said, I have a smile on my face. We haven't had smiles on our face at Henry Ford for several years, and it's in time for a leader who can turn it around, turn our culture around. This is a very important event because I see it as closure for the search committee, for the people, for the board members who served on the committee, and the 30 members from the community who served on the community. This is a celebration for them too, because they went through a very long process to discover this young man. So if there are any of these committee members present, would they please stand and be recognized? So we're all relieved. It was a long process. It was very difficult for the candidates. It took over a year. And I have this opportunity, so I want to thank Becky Chadwick and Terry Hagan for their monitoring and dealing with the logistics of 33 people who are trying going through a difficult situation of winnowing down from all the applicants and interviewing these people. They finally found 13 people that they thought should be real candidates for the position at the college. And they interviewed them all day Saturday and Sunday and got down to 5 applicants. 1 dropped out, and so the board interviewed 4 candidates, and they came up with President Kavalhuna. Now, all through these interviews, the thing that stood out is what the judge just talked about, is that this man has charisma. He has leadership qualities, and they just come out in the interviewing process. And you just want to hear him, and you want to follow him. And how good is a leader if they don't have any followers? You know, so he's magnetic. All right, so I just get kind of carried away because I kind of like this guy. So really the major quality of President Kavalhuna, Esquire, is his leadership ability. to me, he demonstrated that he really wanted to be an inclusive leader for Henry Ford College, because he started July 2nd. He was appointed by the board in May of 2018. He started July 2nd. One of the first things that he did was he said, I want to have a listening tour. What's a listening tour? Well, he wanted to meet all the people who are related to the college and have concern and interest in the college, right from the legislators to stakeholders here in Dearborn, as well as the people who work at the college, the faculty, the administration, and the staff. He just had simple questions. Questions, Judge. He just had simple questions. What do you think are the strengths of Henry Ford College? What do you think are their challenges? And how can I help you? So he sent a list in his board briefs. He sent a list of all the people that he had contacted. I couldn't believe it. It's hundreds. And I thought, well, what's really an advantage here is that not only is he learning from everybody about what are the strengths and the challenges of the college, but he's establishing all these relationships. So people actually encounter him, they talk to him, they hear him, and they begin to do what the judge has said. They begin to trust him, and they begin to think, I'm going to put a smile on my face. There's a future for Henry Ford College. So let's try to define leadership. You know, there are millions of definitions, but I have one provided by Stephen Zichik in his book of Concepts of Leadership. He wrote this in 2012. Steve writes, leadership is inspiring others to pursue a vision to the extent that it becomes a shared vision and a shared success. I kind of thought that was an appropriate kind of definition of leadership relative to President Kavalhuna. But where does this shared vision come from? The shared vision for Henry Ford College is a shared vision of the community college movement. The community college movement started way back in 1909, very small. But during the Great Depression, in the 30s, they began to blossom. And so when did Henry Ford College start? 1938. So we were a product of that period when people did not have jobs and they were anxious to learn and get knowledge and skills. Another time that it blossomed was in